You want to get to me, you've got to make my gatekeepers like you.
Jeff Watson.
Guys, you just opened up a floodgate.
When you put a powerful lawyer that everybody looks up to on a podcast with a marketing and a systems genius,
John Cochran.
Investors all across the entire country, they're making massive mistakes right now, and they need a better playbook.
Phil, not ignore.
Every single thing that we deliver in this podcast,
Stay in those strategies. Stay in those strategies.
insider information only.
Stay in those strategies.
Live from Real Estate U and around the globe. This is the Real Estate Investors Playbook.
Step on the gas. Give me the green light, 'cause I'm ready to go. Let's have a good time.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the show, the Real Estate Investors Playbook. This is going to be episode number 3. What we're going to talk about, Jeff and I are going to talk about onto this episode, is overcoming the problem created when investors, they go out there and they spend all of their money on how to do deals, but then they go broke. They spend all of their money on this education. They spend all of their money, on how to do deals, and they never even do a deal, right? They never even do a deal, and then they're broke. They look up, they're broke. It's like, oh my gosh, I just invested all this, but now I can't even do the business. Like, what do investors like that do? So, what a powerful podcast. What a powerful, episode this is. So, Jeff, why don't we kind of go through some of the things that a real estate investor would do in order to get started in their mind.
Well, yeah, in their mind, they've got this overwhelming amount of things that they think that they need to have to do. Everything from getting their entities set up right, getting an accountant, finding real estate agents, finding private money, hiring a lawyer, learning how to do all sorts of different kinds of deals. And this is right here where I'm going to throw the cautionary thing out. Don't learn how to do 15 different kinds of deals.
Right.
Learn how to do 1 or 2 kinds of deals really good. Save the rest of that money on your education right now, okay? Learn how to do a couple of these different kinds of deals really good. Learn how to wholesale real good. Learn how to rehab really well, and that's enough, okay? Or learn how to wholesale, learn how to manage property. Those are 2 good things. Leave that alone. But they want to learn how to rehab, how to do subject to, how to manage properties, how to create land trust, how to buy mailing lists, how to do direct mail. They want to learn how to structure owner finance deals. They want to learn how to do podcasts. They want to build websites, all this stuff, and it's overwhelming. It's too much.
It's not just overwhelming, dude. And really, in reality, when you look at this, and I get it from a newbie standpoint, I get it. You're brand new, and don't get me wrong. I invest in my education every single day.
Yep.
Jeff invests in his education every single day. It's so important to do. But I just see too many real estate investors. They want wealth, they want freedom, they want everything that real estate will give them.
But they go into the slavery of debt and no money in order to try and get there, and it makes no sense.
Well, what they do is they focus so much on, having to know, I've got to go out there and find a lawyer. I got to get a corporation set up. I've got to go out there and get a good accountant. I've got to go out there and raise funds. And they start thinking about all this stuff I got to do. But in reality, they miss the one thing that they really got to do.
Oh, I know. And they run out. They have, John, over and over and over again, they have run out of money, and they don't have any resources to do the 2 things that they're designed to do. Get deals and execute on the deal. Find the deals, market for them, and do the deals.
And see, that's so interesting that we're having this talk right now, because I run into too many investors, and that's what they think. I've got to do all this, I got to do all this, I got to do all that, I got to structure this, I've got to do that. And I just sit there and look at them. They come to me, and I just sit there and look at them like, no, you don't have to do any of that. Go out there and find deals, and then we'll worry about saving money on taxes when you actually have that problem. Right? You don't need to fix a tax problem that you don't even have right now. You don't need to protect assets that you don't even have at this point. Let's go out there and find deals first, and start accumulating wealth, and start doing deals, and then we can move on to it. So, Jeff, let's go back to this, because this is good.
Because we can split this into 2 podcasts, and I think we should. So let's go back to the front half.
So what we talked about, obviously episode number 3, overcoming the problem created by investors. It's when they spend all of their money on, how to do deals, but then they're broke to not having to do any deals.
To market for the deals.
So what do? Like, what is their only option that an investor has? They're broke.
Well, they've got a couple of options. Number one is that they put everything on pause and try and go get some more money, go deeper into debt, work their other jobs and so on, and then, scrape up some money to go marketing, or, and I don't want them to do that, or they could do something else that is so profoundly simple but effective. And that is, they can take this newly acquired knowledge that they have, and they can start to try and create relationships and create more relationships and introduce themselves to more people. Get to meet more people. Start networking more. Start building relationships so that they can start getting deals referred to them.
So this is interesting because obviously you just went through the two options, right? The first option is you can go out there and put things on pause. You can go out and get more money. And I guess you subconsciously think that if I go out there and put things on pause, and if I can go out there and get another 30 grand and learn this next newest whatever, that one deal that I get from it's going to cover it.
Yeah.
But that deal never comes.
They never come. Oh, they never come. But I'm going to touch on something else here, and this is one of my pet peeves. And folks, you're going to hear a rant, okay? Just hang in there. I watch too many people way too soon prematurely think that they're going to become a full-time real estate investor. I got news for you. Real estate investing should start out as a side gig, a side part-time job.
Yep.
It should start out part-time. You should not give up your full-time gig. You should not walk away from any steady income sources that you have. Instead, you should be trying to replace that steady income with part-time investment deals. You're going to be smarter and better for it. Now, but we get people who have prematurely jumped off the bridge, and they have not yet secured their parachute to themselves. Hopefully, they've got a handle on one of the shoulder straps of their parachute. Hopefully, they got a hand on it, and they got to figure out how to get that parachute on, get it buckled in, pull the cord before they run out of air.
Yeah.
So let's talk to those people right now. They're running out of air as they listen to us right now.
I'll tell you,
they need deals.
This is my freaking wheelhouse. Like this is me. And I'll tell you that I went back in 2015 and I looked at all of the deals that I had done, in that time frame, basically since time. And I looked at that and I wanted to know a couple things. Number one, how many deals did I do? And I put this onto a spreadsheet. And then most importantly...
I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah?
You just did something that way too many investors never, ever do.
Know their deals?
Track their deals.
Track their deals? If you can't track it, you can't build it.
If you can't measure it, if you don't track it, you can't measure it. If you can't measure it, how do you know you're growing?
Exactly. So I went back and I looked at this stuff and I was like, oh my gosh, I've got this spreadsheet of all the deals that I've done. And then I had all the addresses, and then I had all of the profits that I made on all these deals. But the thing that I really wanted to know, what was the lead source on all the fattest deals that I did? And so I did this in my business back in 2015, and I realized that all of the fat deals, the deals that made me the most amount of money, they all came from a relationship, a referral of some sort. So I went strictly to a model. I started looking at that. I was like, huh. And now my model is strictly what I call the 90-10 rule, which is 90% of your deals get done from relationships. Hence, 90% of your time goes into relationships. 10% of your time goes into marketing. 10% of your deals will come from marketing.
So out of the 100% of the effort that you put into generating deals, generating incoming opportunities that you can sort to see if they're going to happen or not, 90% of that time is spent on building relationships with people that either already are or who you hope soon to be sending you deals.
Absolutely.
10% of the time is spent dealing with direct mail, other outbound stuff.
That's exactly it. But I'll tell you, so many people get this theory wrong.
They get it flipped around.
They get it flipped around, number one, and they spend 90% of their effort on the 10%. Or 100% of their effort on the 10%, then they sit there and scratch their head and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing deals. But then the ones that truly do understand it, like they really understand the 90-10, if 90% of your deals come from relationships and 10% of your deals come from the marketing side of it, I also feel like that's misinterpreted as well, because let me give you an example of this. Let me just say that, do you go to your friends, your family, build relationships with people that can bring you in deals, or do you actually build relationships with people that can get you deals? And my answer is, when you go to like your what we call like our Project 100, the 100 closest people that are to us, they're not going to bring me deals. But you know what? Like if I went to the top 10 people around me and I said, hey, do you know anybody that's looking to sell their house or anything like that? They're not going to send me any deals. But what if I flip this around, right? Think about this, the 90%. What if I flip this around and I said, to those same 10 people, I said, hey, who's your attorney that you have? Do you all 10 have attorneys? They're all going to have attorneys. Like, they all have it. Like, I've been in a room with hundreds of people, and I asked everybody, if you got sued today, raise your hand of how many people could come up with an attorney in 24 hours. Everybody raises their hand. So everybody can come up with an attorney with this. So what would a smart investor do? And I'll tell you what we do is, instead of going to the 100 people that are around you, right, and you look for deals, from them and ask them for that, instead flip this question around and just say, who can they refer me to that could get me to deal? So
who could that 100 help you get access to?
Yes, that's the power. That's the power, because when you really look at this, if I go to the 10 people, the 10 closest people that are to me, my friends, my family or whatnot, and then I go to their attorney, well, now I have a natural in with their attorney. Mm-hmm. Maybe their attorney's not the guy or the girl. Maybe it's not the person. But you think that attorney doesn't know a probate attorney that could just hand me 40 deals a year? Absolutely. So when I talk about the 90-10 rule and we talk about relationships, it's really about who are the people that you can go out there and build relationships with that can get you to those deals. Mm-hmm. That's the more powerful part of that.
You're being more strategic in how you cultivate those relationships, because you're building them for the long haul of multiple referrals.
Yes.
Not a one and done.
Yes.
Did they get that? I mean, John, that is profoundly brilliant and simple at the same time.
Well, here's the thing, though, is that I've never got through my head on why a real estate investor, and I understand why they do it, is they do it because people teach it like this. But I can't get through my head on why a real estate investor would go mail a property that's in probate, and that's what they all do. 99% of them do that when there's one property. One property. Let's flip this thing around and let's not go after the property. Let's go after the probate attorney. Because that probate attorney that is going to be handling whatever case it is, they're probably working a lot more cases than that. So instead of going out there and getting one deal off of marketing that you got to spend money with, if I can go and get a referral to a probate attorney that does 40 cases a year, and if I can get an in with him or her, well, there's 40 deals that I get completely for free from a relationship. They never list onto the market, anything else, and it's like the best deals ever. And that's how you do it.
Right. And I will tell you, in my experience, because I used to do some probate work, not a ton, but a good bit, in Cuyahoga County, Ohio, large county. And I can tell you that there are some attorneys that do probate that the kind of cases that they get, you're not going to find motivated sellers, because these are attorneys at the big firms where they're simply fulfilling the well-designed multi-stage trust plans and so on. You don't need those guys. In fact, one of those guys is a second cousin of mine. His name's Bernie. Bernie would not be a guy that's going to be able to send you those kind of deals because he's not going to get them. But there are other guys.
But would Bernie know somebody that could?
He may or may not. It all depends. But there are other probate lawyers. There are other probate lawyers that this is their wheelhouse. This is their wheelhouse. They're handling estates where the assets are anywhere from $25,000 to $250,000. That's their wheelhouse. Those are the places where they're going to have houses that need to sell.
Yep.
And it's easy to figure out who those attorneys are. And then I would tell you, John, I don't know what you think about this idea, but since probates are a great way to go, probate attorneys are the best way to get into those things, I would try and find out who are the top dog probate attorneys that are handling these cases. And then I would say, okay, so here are the lawyers. Now let's see in my top 100 circle of friends, does anybody know them?
How can I get to them?
Does anybody in my circle of friends know any of these lawyers?
Yes. That's how you do it. That's exactly how you do it. You don't go after your 100 people and expect them to bring you deals, because they won't. You go to them and see,
hey,
who can
do
get
you
me to
know?
that? Yes.
Do you know Philip Jackson?
Yes.
That has who's a lawyer with his offices are on Phillip Street.
Now, and here's the awesome thing about this. Number one is now you have a natural in, and Philip has to talk to you because you've got a relationship into him. It's not like it's a cold lead or anything like that. You've got a natural in, so it's an easy conversation with you to have. You can even take the referrer with you to that meeting with them.
I'm going to tell you a story about that, John. Just last week, I took a cold call on my cell phone from a guy in Phoenix, Arizona. And the only reason I kept that call going for more than 30 seconds was because in the first 30 seconds, I found out how he got my name and number. He got it from somebody else that I know that I've done some legal work for.
Yeah.
So that's why I didn't hang up on him. Instead, I had a happy conversation with him, and who knows, there may be a relationship that comes out of it.
Yep.
But in the first 30 seconds, I found out the common connector.
Yep. Find that out, and then, I mean, you cannot beat a relationship lead. Period. You cannot do it. And oh, by the way, it's free. And oh, by the way, that is free.
Oh, by the way, it is free.
And so when you're talking probate, okay, and there's a lot of different ways that I'm going to talk about, in future, but we seem to be really going down probate on this, and it's one of our best strategies. So, here's the interesting thing about this, and I actually learned this one directly from you. And it's like when you get in with, let's say that you find this probate attorney that does 40, 50 cases a year. That's who you're looking for. And then you go to your 100 people that are around you, and you're like, oh my gosh, who can I go to of my 100 people to get to Phil whatever, Phil Jackson, whatever his name is. So you get to Phil Jackson as the probate attorney, and let's say that you have to call him or whatnot, and you got to call him a couple times. The best way to get to Phil Jackson and to get into his office is not actually Phil Jackson.
That's right.
It's not him.
It's exactly right.
Who is it?
You want to get to me, you've got to make my gatekeepers like you.
Yep.
You've got to do that. Otherwise, you don't have a snowball's chance of talking. If my gatekeepers, and I've got tremendously wonderful gatekeepers in my office, if they don't like you, you ain't got a snowball's chance of getting through to me.
So, and I have the same thing. I mean, you got to schmooze the people that are around me in order to get to me. That's just the way that it is. So, give me an example. Let's say that I'm trying to get to Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson is like the top probate guy into my area, and he's just not answering the calls. I mean, he's
not returning my calls.
He's not returning the calls. I call his office. It goes straight to voicemail. He doesn't respond to any of those. I email this guy. I do direct mail to this guy. I do everything that I can to him. I got to get to the gatekeeper. What do I do to the
I'm going to show up at his office with a modest gift. High-end chocolate, gourmet cookies, gourmet popcorn, something. I'm going to show up at his office, and I'm going to introduce myself. I'm going to make sure I'm prepared to leave a card and a paperclip to a one-page handout. One page, simple, easy. And I'm prepared to leave that with the gatekeeper and say, listen, I've been trying to get a hold of Phil Jackson. I've left him a few messages. I know he's really busy. Could you please see that he gets this? And oh, by the way, this is for you.
So he gets the actual...
He gets the one-page handout with my business card.
Yes, and then the gatekeeper gets the chocolate.
Gets the gourmet chocolates, the popcorn, whatever it is I'm bringing in. Yes.
Now, why is it that way? I mean, if you think about it from this angle, and see, most investors, they just don't think about this. And oh, by the way, most investors, they're going after the house in probate, not the probate attorney, right? They're not trying to build a relationship with them, which is I just keep doing it. I mean, because it's just making me a fortune.
Yeah, I mean, that's to me, that's like focusing only on vacant houses and only vacant houses.
Right, that's all I'll do.
And I'm like, well, that's one of many criteria. But I want to go find the source. Okay? And the source is, I got to go find Mr. Phil Jackson, and I got to go find out who controls Phil Jackson's calendar.
Yep.
Who can Phil not ignore? If I get his gatekeeper to think that I'm a good person, Phil is going to call me back.
You bet. 100%. And it's going to be quick.
It may not be a long call, and I got to be prepared for it. And it's going to be, hey, Mr. Jackson, thank you so much for calling me. I know you're super busy. Here, my name is. This is what I do. If I can ever help you, if you've ever got a house that that are going to be hard to sell, please give me a call. I'd love to try and buy it.
And the thing of it is that if he's working on 40, 50 cases, 60 cases a year, which he probably is, and all you do is you get that you get that relationship, you produce on one deal, guys, you just opened up the floodgate to where he'll send them all to you.
Yes, but John, the key is you've got to produce on that one deal.
Yeah.
I one time took a young wholesaler. He had 5 or 8 deals under his belt, and I connected him with 2 good probate lawyers. 2 good guys. They probably had 3 cases a month, so that's about 36 cases a year. I connected him with 2 good guys. He went dark on them after he made offers to buy, and he couldn't fulfill his end of the deal. He couldn't resell the houses, so he went dark. He stopped taking their phone calls. That was the kiss of death.
Yep.
That left me in an awkward, embarrassed situation. I had to make up for it in ways, and this guy was dead to me. Mm-hmm. This guy was dead to them and dead to me.
Yep.
And I had one conversation with him afterwards, and I said, why didn't you take their calls? Why didn't you just man up and say, I'm sorry, I miscalculated the value of the property?
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this, because I can tell you that I have personally done this before, and I don't know if this is great advice for everybody else, but this is the power of a relationship. Would you advise for people that, let's say that I know this probate attorney, he does 40 to 60 cases a year. I'm trying to get the in with him, and I have the meeting with him, and I know that he's going to go out there and give me a deal. He gives me clearly the worst deal that he's got. Do you do that deal for a potential to get 50 more deals?
Absolutely.
And that's exactly what I've done. So just recently, it was so interesting. It was a few months ago. I knew this guy was a player. I knew that he was a player. I knew that he had the potential to send me 40, 50, 60 deals a year. Keep in mind, I never had to market for those at all. He goes out there and he sends me this deal. The very first deal that he sends me, it's like got fleas all over it. It like smells. It's that deal that nobody wants. But I knew what he wanted me to do too. He wanted me to produce on that deal, and he wanted me to produce onto that deal to see if I would produce, because most investors, they won't.
Anybody can sell a cupcake. Very few people can sell a turd.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes. So I went out there and I bought that turd. And now more flow is coming to me, and now it's exactly what I wanted. I built that relationship with him. I built that trust with him, and now it's like I never have to pay for a lead, and now the better leads, the better deals are floating my way because of it. So it's almost like a no-brainer. So we've talked a lot about probate, right? We've talked a lot about probate. But so think about, again, what we're talking about, guys, is, you've went out there as a real estate investor, you've spent all this money on how to do deals, but you never actually do a deal out of it, and you're leaving that you're broke. We've talked a lot about the 90-10 rule, about
You've got all this head knowledge,
yeah,
with no deals to apply it to.
with no deals to actually show for it.
Which tells me that you've got 2 problems. You know way too much about way too many things.
Yeah.
And you got to get really
Spread too
focused.
thin.
You got to get really focused on 2 or 3 different strategies. Stay in those strategies. Stay in those strategies. Stay in those strategies. And oh, by the way, stay in those strategies. And then leave money to market.
So when you think as an investor, you're starting up your business, and you think that you got to go out there and get your corporation, get your an accountant. raise private money and, find a lawyer and, all of this other stuff and asset protection and, save money on taxes and all this other stuff. And in reality, you just got to find a deal, right? You got to go out there and find a deal in order to have a business. You got to find a deal to have asset protection problems.
Right.
You got to find a deal to be able to have tax problems to begin with. So you got to find the deal. That's the number one thing. But you're broke. So you've got to go with the best strategy for finding deals, which all investors should be through anyways, which is a relationship, and they're all free. We gave the example of a probate attorney, going after the probate attorney and reaching out to the maybe 10 people around you, or you find the stud that's doing 40 to 60 deals a year. He's the guy that you need to go to. You go to the closest people that are around you to see who knows that guy. Maybe you send an email out, you call them all individually or whatever it is to see how you can get to Phil Jackson. You get to Phil Jackson and he doesn't respond to you at all. And then you're like, oh my gosh, do I just stop on this thing? But Phil Jackson's a thing. So what you do is you go and, get in front of the gatekeeper. You send you put a letter together for Phil, and then you go to the office and you give the gatekeeper the actual, chocolates and whatnot. Can you give this to Phil? I've been trying to reach him, everything else. You get to Phil. He sends you a deal. It's got fleas on it. Nobody wants it. It's even smart to do that deal if you know that Phil, will execute and give you more deals after that. So that's probate, right? That's probate.
And I want to stop right there because there's one thing that we didn't cover in that whole line. And that is, how do you find that Phil Jackson is your man? Or how do you find that, Christina Wilson is your gal as a probate lawyer? Let's talk about that for a minute. There's a couple of ways of doing it.
Well, I'll tell you how we do it is, number one is it does take legwork.
Yes.
It takes a lot of legwork, and you can...
But legwork doesn't cost you money. You don't buy a list.
Legwork is free. You can go to the public records and look at all the cases, the probate cases that are going on, and you got to go through them. At least in our county, you got to go through them one by one, and you just see who is doing the deals. Like
right.
who in the world? What is the attorneys that are doing all these probate cases? Who are they? And you're going to see that their name keeps popping up and up and up. You're like, this is a player.
So you can, let's just say you decide to spend an afternoon at the local probate court. You go pull 100 case files. Mm-hmm. And you go through there and you find the 5 most reoccurring names. You write those 5 names down. Now you can do something else. You can take those same 5 names and you can go to some of the clerks there at the work at the counter and you can say, hey, how often is so-and-so in here? Out of the 5 names. Hey, how often is Joe Smith in here? How often is Phil Jackson in here? How often is Christina Wilson in here? Mm-hmm. Do they do a lot of this kind of work?
Just flat out ask them. They'll know.
I'm not asking you to recommend him. I just want to know how often is he in here. Then go back and look at how they advertise themselves. Are they in the yellow pages as a probate lawyer? Are they on the internet as a probate lawyer? Do they have that sign on their door that says that they do wills, trust, probate, and estate planning? Do they? Okay? And then you now know that that's somebody you want to chase after. Okay?
And then the other thing is you could just, and that's a great strategy. Those are 2 great strategies. Go through the records, find out who you find, see how often they come in there or whatnot. You're not looking for a referral, nothing like that. You can just do a simple Google search. Probate attorneys, X area.
That's where they're going to be advertising.
Right.
And that doesn't necessarily mean that they have the volume of deals coming. They don't have the volume. They may or may not have the volume of cases coming across that's going to give you the deal feed that you're looking for. So that's why I'm going to where it's actual deal feed.
It's almost like you're validating. Right, you go down there one by one. You find the top 5 players. You see how often they go in there, and then you validate all of this stuff by doing a simple Google search. You find the player, and then you go out to your people to find out who do I know that could get me in front of this person, because I guarantee you probably know somebody.
And then I'm going to throw this last thing out here, and let's just say that you're super shy. Okay, you're super shy. You're super embarrassed. You don't want to do any of this stuff. Can you at least take a couple hours a day, several different days, and go down at the probate court and just sit there and watch to see who comes in and who comes out?
You bet.
Do you start to see some of the same people over and over?
Yep. And again, it's free.
It's free.
It's free. So there's nothing that we've talked about today that actually costs you money.
Just time.
It's just time. It's just time, and it's really, really powerful to have.
Oh, but John, you know what it means? This is what it requires, and I know we're running out of time on this. It requires that they find the boundary of the envelope and push it a little bit.
Right. Which forces them to grow.
Good.
It forces them to grow. It forces them to get outside of their box, to grow as a real estate investor. So, guys, there's so many different ways. We wanted to get on here and we wanted to cover into this episode, really investors into this third episode of, overcoming the problem that, investors create when they spend all their money on how to do a deal, but then they're left broke. And, at the end of the day, it really comes down to, you've got to focus on bringing in deals. You've got to focus on the best place to find deals, which is relationships anyways. Even if you're not broke, the best way to find deals is relationships. There's so many different ways. We covered probate on how you can go out there and instead of doing direct mail and buying a list and, costing you money to mail direct mail and thousands of dollars that you just don't have, spin it to a relationship, go after the probate attorney, and have somebody feed you 40, 60 deals a year, something like that. That's the best way to do it. Now, there's so many different things that you can do with relationships, by the way, that we're going to cover on future episodes. So, for example, you could do this. You could actually turn sheriff sales into relationships. You can turn contractors, realtors, asset managers. Auction.com is a great one as well. You can all turn. There's everything that you do, everything that you can do to acquire a deal, you can spin into a relationship somehow. To where it makes you more money and you have that in versus, you got to go out there and market for that deal. So I want to cover that on future episodes. So you guys are awesome. You guys are absolutely just amazing. We're seeing your guys' feedback onto the blog, which is awesome. So, thank you again for tuning in to the Real Estate Investors Playbook. This is episode number 3, and you can go out there and get the show notes on wholesalereformation.com. Just go up there and click on podcast. You'll find the podcast right there, and you can download the show notes right there. So, Jeff, anything else that you'd like to say before we get?
I want to thank people for taking time to make this a very popular podcast. I want to thank the people that enable me to be able to do this. I want to thank you, John, and your amazing team for getting this all put together. And I want to say thank you to everybody that checks out WatsonInvested.com and WholesaleReformation.com. And peace. I'm out.
Yep. See you guys. Thank you. Peace.
And I mean you want to win big. You master getting deals from relationships and you develop follow-up systems. There's not another podcast out there as powerful as this Real Estate Investor Playbook. It doesn't exist.